Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome back to another edition of Noles Anonymous, a game day edition of Noles Anonymous. That's right, folks. Your Florida Seminoles are taking on the Memphis Tigers in just a few short hours. And with me, talk about a little more is my co-host, Mr. Davey Wise Esquire. David, ¿qué le pasa a mi amigo?
Drake, I need to have some good vibes put into my fall tomorrow, or I guess when you're listening to this today. Um, I just want to be happy about football again. God, is that so much to ask?
It is, because right now, folks, as you very well know, Seminole Nation can probably attest the season so far as being the vibes are not immaculate. And this game against Mike's former team, quite honestly, I probably will say not only for the rest of the season, but also maybe for the rest of Mike Norvell's tenure. But let's just look at the game right now. Florida State takes on the Memphis Tigers, led by Ryan Silverfeld, someone who was under Mike's staff, and also someone that we really want. I think he was trying to target as the offensive line coach, probably actually when he took the Florida State job. And this is a team where that talent wise is typically a group of five team, but they can definitely make some noise. And some of them have them at a dark horse pick to be the G5 kind of front runner. Besides them, I think Boise State's the other team. So, Dave, looking at this team overall, this is basically a Memphis team that they do have a solid quarterback. I think Seth Hennigan is the quarterback for the Memphis Tigers. He's someone who is near the top or is at the top for quarterback records at Memphis. You have a running back room led by Mario Anderson. So this is a Memphis team that, quite honestly, it was not going to go quietly into the afternoon, right?
No, that is right, Drake. I don't love PFF stats anymore because they don't fit my narrative right now.
I'll
Because
pull it
they're
up right now.
often just nonsense. But yes, please do. Because if you ask PFF, Memphis is the 23rd best team overall in college football. And PFF says they have a good offense and a decent defense, which, I mean, I think you got to see a little more from Memphis before you say their defense is decent, because last year it was not decent. It was like hilariously bad. So obviously some roster changes for them, just like everybody else in the offseason. Seems like it's going better for them. But offense is where Memphis will get it done. Yeah, obviously, I mean, just looking at that, your quarterback, that is a lot higher grade than anyone sitting on FSU's roster. That is 3 of their offensive linemen grading at 78 or higher. Uh, like you said, Mario Anderson grading at 78 at running back. This is a solid offense. This is an offense that, if we're playing defense like we have the last 2 weeks, I don't know, Drake. I don't know if this is as much of a layup as it should be. And we'll probably talk about this at the end, but anecdotally, you can't lose to the team you left, the G5 team you left.
No, and Dave, if you could really quickly, while I do my little soliloquy, can you let me know who Memphis played the first 2 games of the year? I know last week was Troy, but I don't know who they played the first week. And this is a team that, I mean, look, yes, PFF. It's some I think it's the perfect way you can lie with statistics, but it is somewhat of a formulated science. To me, this is a Memphis team that is talented for their respective level, but that's what I mean by saying respective level. You are a power 4 program with the Pac-12. Well, the Pac-12 is slowly coming back with the additions of, the Mountain West teams, but you have the talent to basically not only push them around, but to bully them and exert your dominance. I mean, you're going to have bigger, stronger, and faster players. The only question is, are you going to be actually up to the task, and are you going to be able to respond, which we haven't seen from this team against Georgia Tech and against a Boston College. Also, with Memphis, they're down what should have been probably their number one back in Sutton Smith. I mean, Mario Anderson is a South Carolina transfer he is a transfer from South Carolina to Memphis, but this is a team that they're gonna have to throw the ball quite often overall, and that should go into hand in hand with your strength, or what it should be your biggest strength, and that should be Az Thomas, Ventrell Cypress, Shaheem Brown, Conrad Hussey, your secondary. So to me, this is a game I fully expect not only them to kind of be locked down, but I think this is a game where your defensive line really, really needs to step up.
Yeah, so just they played North Alabama week 1. That game, just like Troy, who's not great this year. Those games don't tell you much, especially as it relates to like how Memphis competes against Power 5 football. Now, Florida State hasn't exactly resembled that all that much this year, but and I don't know, Drake. I don't know. You tell me if this surprises you. I mean, because we just looked at PFF. I have SP Plus pulled up here. Memphis comes in at 27th. Florida State at 34th. Memphis with the 10th best offense, 82nd best defense, or not very good. Florida State with the 45th best offense and 31st best defense. Drake, I'm going to piggyback off of what you just said. You said this is a game where the D line's got to eat. This is a game where both of your lines need to eat. You need to see the offensive line look like it has among the most experience in all of the FBS because that's what it is and hasn't looked like it yet. And you need to see the defensive line chock full of guys making ESPN's biggest freak athletes of college football list and, defensive ends that are either 5 stars or projected to be first rounders in the upcoming draft. That's what our defensive line is made of. All 4 starters fall into the categories I just mentioned. If they can't go out there and not get right, but just resemble something like what you expected them to look like this year, and the same thing on the offensive line, if you can't get that done in this game against Memphis, we're going to need to do a whole revisit of the entire rest of this season and really consider what looks like it actually could be a win for this team, right?
I completely agree with that. And you look, they need to eat. I don't know. I can't even go much further than that when it comes to the offensive line and the defensive line. Now, the offensive line, I'll pull it up, PFF up in a second. There is one player with Memphis that honestly, I guess, as a whole, we would take in our own roster, and that is Elijah Herring. He's the linebacker for Memphis. I think he's rated out like one of the top position players in the country at the linebacking spot. Let me pull him up. Yeah, he's right there, 83.6 on defense, which, we would love to have that on our team. But overall, this is a defense that this is a team, I keep saying it, you have the talent, you have the size, you have the speed, you have the strength. This is a time where you should be able to just simply, on sheer will, on what you're supposed to be, not bully. Sorry, yes, actually, no, yes, you should be able to bully them and win, not maybe comfortably, but in a dominant fashion where kind of like how we just watched the Buffalo Bills just dominate the Miami Dolphins on Thursday Night Football. It's kind of like along those lines. Like you need to showcase this. And this is a game where offensive lines, I want to see Darius Washington respond. I think he just had a bad game against a player that you and I did discuss with BC, Donovan Ezeraku, who is going to be drafted to the NFL with the Boston College team that also had the game tape from Georgia Tech, also was their first game of the year. But to me, this is a game that not only do you need to win, in my opinion, you need to win in a fashion that will make us kind of exhale to how we felt from the first 2 games. I
Yeah.
don't want a squeaky win. I don't want a one-score win. I want something where it shows me that you got up and you responded, kind of like a Rocky 4 moment, right?
Yeah, totally fair. And just one more point here. You wonder what this game's going to look like because against Boston College, we barely ran the ball. And that was the opposite of game 1 where we barely passed the ball. And you wonder if we're just doing this yo-yo thing or if we're going to be able to find any balance or stop just shoving something down the throat of the other team when it's not working. Because Memphis has a top 10 run defense, according to PFF, but they're 64th against the pass. So if your receivers are capable of getting open and making catches, especially when it matters, this has got to be somewhat of a get right spot for him. It's funny because Georgia Tech is bottom 10 in the country in pass coverage. However, we didn't throw the ball all that much in that game.
I was just about to say, I was like, we didn't throw the ball that much. We couldn't have helped that out.
Right. So, it's like forcing a square peg into a round hole this year. It feels like way too much of that. Here's what I want to see. I want to see coordination among the defense. I feel like I'm back to 4 years ago saying this, but I don't want to see people looking at each other, looking confused, everybody having to hit everybody to get in the right spot all the time and just looking like chickens with their heads cut off, at the linebacker position or whatever. I don't want to see it. Look coordinated. Defensive line. Make it look like you care to try more than one move. I'm not talking about all of them, but just let's see it. And on offense, maybe don't run the ball every play if they're top 10 against the run. Not saying pass it every time, but this probably isn't going to be the game where you get your running game right. So take advantage of it. Get creative. Do something in the passing game that looks, I don't know, like maybe we have a deep threat on this team because I haven't seen it yet this year.
No, and I think they were discussing it actually on the 247 podcast where I think they only had one kind of deep route, and that was the one to Malik Benson that DJ you kind of threw like he threw it off. I mean, it was gonna be a hard catch to go, but he didn't even give him a chance to. But that was the one time I think we've seen that. And I think you're right. Where I do want you to try to establish some threat of a run game in this game in this matchup
Yeah.
because you kind of need that. I mean, against BC, you threw the. I think you had 89% of your plays were passes. You need a balance of each thing. You can't just stick with one or the other at this point. And I think that's what we've seen with Mike over this season so far, and then also in the games that he was struggling with back a few years ago, where he does one thing or the other. If he shows any lack of, I guess, lack of trust in a position or position group, he will try to get away from that as much as possible and try to like not even touch that. Or if someone keeps struggling, he still will continue to try to give them a chance to respond. And we saw that last week with with DJU with the passing 89% of the time, 89% of the time. The plays towards Kyle Morlock, even though he dropped 2 or 3 passes, which I will suspect we'll see him probably have a chance to respond in this game because that's the one reason why we do like Coach Norvell. I mean, we saw the one play I think against Miami where Deuce Spann had a route, he dropped the ball, he went over to him, talked to him, and they gave him a deep route pass that he caught in that Miami game that would beat them 52 what 3 something like that. So
Yep.
to me, this is the kind of game where I need to see this team, and by this team, I'm including the coaching staff. I'm including Norvell, Fuller, Shannon, Pap. Atkins isn't back yet, but maybe Atkins, from the parking lot can hang out. Like I need them to respond because that's what they built this program off is the climb and the response that you have from the climb. Because right now, I don't think they're responding at all. And this game, you're paying Memphis $1 million to fly over to your game first month of the year. Your season is already effectively over at this point. Your CFP expirations, they're gone. Let's be completely honest here from what we've seen. So I want a semblance of just show me some fight and show me a response. Show me what you at least you can be a part of what we thought you'd be coming in, what team you would be heading into the season.
Yeah, I think more than anything, I'm looking at this game to see how much stubbornness it just emanates from the TV. And what I mean by that is like, for example, I was just talking about the difference between Memphis's defense and run defense versus pass coverage, right? Well, they're the third best team in the country at tackling. So, are we going to throw a bunch of bubble screens and try to make them miss tackles, which they don't do, and do that again and again? I'm going to be really irritated if we do because I've seen a lot of stubbornness like that. And trust me, it doesn't end there. The personnel stubbornness, like you just said, Kyle Morlock had to drop 15 passes before we even Landon Thomas even saw the field. Are we going to keep doing that? Are we going to rotate guys in who we're excited about, who are young players, who at this point in the season, I'm not saying they should be starting necessarily, but I think we want to see a lot of Cam Davis, see what he's made of. And he's already probably the biggest running back on the team. I think you want to see more Landon Thomas. I want to see Hakeem Williams. I would love to see Loane McCoy, So I just wonder, if you're going to see the coaching staff kind of learn from the mistakes that have been made this year and, I guess be less predictable out there and maybe make some changes both in personnel and in play calling. And
Mhm.
I'm very interested to see if we get a chance to see what the future looks like at Florida State.
And I think this might be the game to do it,
Yep.
but I mean, we'll see if they do that. I mean, we'll probably know at halftime where we're at. I think this is a game where also Mike, Adam, please score more than one touchdown in the first half. Please don't let Memphis come out to a big lead because so far this season you have given none of us kind of the hope that you'll come back from a deficit.
Yep. Or
Um,
can, not even that they are even capable. We haven't
yeah,
seen.
yeah, and I don't, and this is going to be a hard question to ask you, Dave, but God forbid
Mm.
that Memphis does win this game today.
Yep.
What kind of conversation are we having Sunday or
There,
Monday, whenever next record?
I'll there needs to be no less than an assistant coach fired within 24 hours of that happening, or you're going to see people start pulling money. And I say that not like as a guess. That I know I have heard from somebody that is a booster that Mike loses to Memphis Mike, that they're all good on spending money on that product. So yeah, I think if we were to lose this game, not just starting 0-3, but it kind of being capped off by losing to the G5 school you came from, and you're in what, year 5 here at Florida State now?
Mhm.
Drake, there's no more room at that point for we'll kumbaya and get it together. I'm not saying Mike needs to go anywhere. Mike isn't going anywhere, so it doesn't matter. And I don't want him to anyways. But back to the stubbornness. If you're not going to make changes when it is objectively wrong, and you're the only guy in the room that thinks, oh, we'll just get it figured out, you're playing with too much money and too big of an organization. College football is like big business. You're like the CEO of this company. And if the company's crumbling below you and you're not replacing VPs or managers, soon you won't be the CEO.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of goes back to where I think too. I mean, if you do drop the game to Memphis, I do definitely think there's a hard reevaluation when it comes to everybody, and then that includes the staff. That also includes the administration too. I mean, you gotta think of like what is going to be kind of your next step moving forward, especially coming after a 13-0 season, especially coming after this now, especially where you're trying to transition from the ACC to either the SEC or the Big Ten, whichever conference you end up landing in. So then, Dave, I guess my final question is then, what is your score prediction for today?
Okay, I keep going back and forth on this. I'm going to stay positive here. I'm going to stay 24-23 FSU. And I mean, I don't feel good about that. Let's just put it that way. That is among the least confidence I've had in a pick, whether I've been right or wrong in quite a while.
Okay.
What
So
about
I'm
you?
going to go into a different direction.
Oh boy.
Every game I picked so far for us to win, we've lost. So I'm going to do the opposite and hoping for the opposite result.
Reverse strengths.
Reverse strengths here. So I'm going to go, it's going to be a 27-17 win for Memphis here.
If we score 17 points on Memphis and the whole offensive coaching staff isn't fired, I don't know, Drake. It's going to be a long couple of years.
This is why you call it a reverse jinx, Dave. I am trying my best here. I am going out on a limb here and saying that we're just going to stink it up in hopes that, the FSU team, the coaching staff, like, you know what? F that guy. F him. F Drake for saying that. We're gonna win. We're gonna win the game just in spite of that douchebag. But that's about it. Dave,
Too much talent, Drake. Get it done.
get it done, boys. But folks, we got this episode done. Thank you so much for taking your time to listen to us. Dave, let the folks know where they can go and follow our work.
Yes, like Drake said, thank you for joining us. As always, you can find us here on YouTube at Noles Anonymous. Please do like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel. Ding the little bell. Turn your notifications on. Let you know when our videos drop. All that good stuff. And do leave us a comment. If this game doesn't scare you, I really would like to know your reasoning behind that at this point. I'd really like to see that comment.
For Dave, this was Drake, and we'll see y'all next time on Noles Anonymous. Take care, everybody, and my apologies for the swear words.
Please go Noles.
Go Tigers.